Hi there, I'm Trevor from TH Training Painting. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the Warhammer 40k Baneblade model. The Baneblade kit offers 8 different configurations. Normally, when you build the model, you have to choose which one of these options you want to go with. But with a little help of magnets, a bit of patience and some skill, you can have them all. The 8 configurations available are the Baneblade, Hellhammer, Stormsword, Shadowsword, Banesword, Doomhammer, Banehammer, and finally Stormlord. This is not a full tutorial on how to build your model, as there are already plenty of demos available on the internet to do this. This is just a demonstration on how I configured the model so it can have all the options available. I'm going to start with the Baneblade. As with all the configurations, there's an option to add sponsons weapons onto the side here and also here. On my conversion, the front and middle panels are removable like so. In order to achieve this ease of change, I have used a number of magnets. As you can see, in the protrusions of this piece, there is a magnet here, and in this piece you can see 2 magnets here and here. Also inside the model, which you can't see, there are magnets just underneath the indentations here and 2 magnets behind here, which are used to hold the panels onto the model when you don't have the sponson weapons attached. These were added to the track assembly before it was all glued together. Now to add the sponson. As you can see, there's a notched area here that allows the piece to easily slot into place, but for some added stability, I've added a little magnet. As for the sponson itself, it has different weapons options. I have fixed some magnets that allow the weapons to become interchangeable. So you can have the option of the heavy bolters or the heavy flamer configuration. If I just slide this out, you can see the little magnet which allows me to swap the weapons in and out, but still allows the weapon to move up and down as the guns are attached to another magnet inside the sponson array. Another thing I've done, in the turret hatch, there is a magnetic sheet glued inside the canopy. With the use of some more magnets attached to the figures, the sheet gives me the options of changing the commander figures in and out of the model while securely holding them in place. I've done a similar conversion on the gunner model. And thanks to the magnets, I can position the commander model to face whichever way I want. As you can see, the tank turret still turns and the cannon still lifts up and down. Moving on from the Baneblade, I start with the Hellhammer configurations. That's one of the easiest configurations to do, as I just removed the cannon so I can replace it. So what is happening with the cannons? In this area here I have a magnet, and if I bring this up to the camera you should be able to see the circular magnet sitting in the turret here. And in the cannon barrel I have another small magnet being held in place with a piece of plastic. Then for the Hellhammer I just bring in its turret weapon, which has a magnet in it as well. Sometimes I just have to bore a little hole into the piece to hold the magnet, which would be done using a suitable sized drill bit in a pin vise or a powered rotary tool. And for the cannon we simply snap it onto the turret. A very important point to make when working with magnets is to make sure the magnet's polarities are all correct. So I have to make sure that the magnet polarities on this piece and on this piece match the magnet in the turret so they'll all stick together correctly. If I don't do this, then the magnets will repel each other and the pieces will not join together. And here is the Hellhammer, which is one of the easiest configurations to make. The next configuration is the Stormsword, and this is where things with the model start to get really interesting. The Stormsword has a completely different turret from the Hellhammer and the Baneblade, and I have to remove the turret and the top piece from the model. And I simply lift it out of the chassis of the tank as I have not glued it into place. which will allow me to add the Stormsword turret and top pieces to the tank. I want to point out another really important part of the conversion, and it's these parts here. These two strips are not part of the model kit and had to be added by me. I just used some plastic from the model's leftover sprue frames, which I cut and placed into place. These two strips are really important to the model because as I show you all the configurations, a lot of the pieces needed will rest upon these strips and will stop them falling into the chassis. The next piece to remove is this front part, which just slides out as it rests on some strips, but these are already part of the model kit and you don't have to add them. With all the pieces removed, I add the first piece, which is the front panel, but I have to make sure I add it from the back, making sure it goes below this area but on top of these supports. I'll just slide it into place. There's no need for any magnets as it can easily rest on the supports. Although I do have some magnets on this front panel here and here, and they are used for holding other parts of the configuration together. The Stormsword introduces this piece, and it's worth noting that this piece is double-sided and used in different configurations. You have this tank plating on one side and then it has this deck plating on the other. And again, this piece has magnets in it here, and they line up with these magnets, with this piece just resting on the support strips that I added. And again, I just want to repeat the importance of making sure that the polarity of the magnets are correct. For the back, I'll use this piece. This is a modular piece that's used on the Stormsword, Shadowsword and the Banesword, and then for the Doomhammer, Banehammer and Stormlord, this top bit comes off to reveal this deck plate. But I'll stick the top back on for now, and I should mention that this piece doesn't need any magnets as it snugly sits in on its own, but it does have some magnets added which are used in other configuration. So it just fits into the model as there's plenty of supports and edges for it to rest on. And now the fixed turret is added, making sure to slot it in at the back. That's the basis of the next configuration done. Now for the weapons. For the Stormsword, I now use this piece. This is the main body of the weapon, and there's one more piece that just attaches to it here. As before, I'm using a piece of plastic in this piece to hold the magnets in place. I have two magnets on the front of the turret. I'm not worried about them being noticed as it'll be covered up by another piece, and I also have two magnets on the weapon piece as well. There's also a large bit here that sits inside this hole and helps support the weapons. So the front of the weapon just snaps into place nice and easy, and now I drop the weapon into the turret so the magnets hold it in place. The last piece is this little canopy that goes across the top of the weapon. I have very carefully added two really small magnets to this piece, and the fixed turret also has two more little magnets just to give me some more hold. And that is the Stormsword. Next up, the Shadowsword configuration. The Shadowsword is a simple conversion from the Stormsword. I just remove the front of the weapon here and replace it with this piece, or I should say these pieces, as it's actually two pieces with more magnets and more pieces of plastic holding it all together. I've created this notch that goes around the piece of plastic holding the magnet in this piece. And now the weapon just slots into place, and that's it. That is the Shadowsword. Time for the Banesword, and that's another really easy configuration to do. I just removed the front piece of the Shadowsword, and now I have the Banesword. Stupidly simple. For the Doomhammer, I have to alter the chassis a little. I'll just remove the weapon for the moment, but I'll leave this piece in place as it's needed in the next two configurations. I take the turret piece off, I remove the top from this piece and put it back in. Now, taking this front piece, I flip it over and set it to the back to create an open deck area, and the fixed turret is now placed towards the front of the model. All I have done is move the double-sided piece to the back and move the turret forward. For the Doomhammer's main gun, I take this piece and add it to the weapon here. Another new piece to add are these gun placements, and they go into the back area. I've added some really small magnets to these, and there are also some more magnets added to these areas. There is a right and a wrong way to attach these pieces. What I'm looking for is this little ridge here, and they line up with this bit here. So they just go into the groove, rest nicely on the model, and again into the little groove, and then resting on the hull. And that is the Doomhammer. Moving on to the Banehammer, it's another easy configuration change. I just remove this piece from the weapon and it's done. No great chore. That is the Banehammer. So the final configuration is the Stormlord, and it's simply a weapon swap. So I pop the canopy off, I remove the main weapon, and I bring in this weapon piece. This piece is only used in this configuration. It has two magnets at the back so it can line up with the turret's magnets. The weapon piece just snaps into place, and I can still move the weapon up and down like that. And then I add the canopy back onto the model, and that is the Stormlord. And finally, I add the tank commander piece using the same method I mentioned earlier. Just a note to say, the commander model and the gunner models have wider bases, which I had to remove so they could be used in this way. So that is all 8 configurations of the Baneblade model kit completed and ready to wage war on its foes. Hope you enjoyed this video. It would be great if you could give the video a like or a share, and then remember to subscribe if you want to see more of my content. Also, check out my website at thtrain.com, and if you'd like to see more content like this, then please let me know in the comment section below.